For most of the 20th century, neuroscientists viewed the adult human brain as a biological machine. Once the parts were assembled and the circuits connected, its physical structure was considered locked. If a region was damaged, it could not be repaired. In 1890, psychologist William James challenged this consensus. He proposed that the brain possessed plasticity, describing it as a structure weak enough to yield to an influence, but strong enough to retain it. Santiago Ramon y Cajal took this further, using the term neuronal plasticity to describe non-pathological changes in the adult brain, even as his peers argued the central nervous system could never produce new cells. Definitive evidence arrived in the 1980s. Neuroscientist Michael Merzenich observed what happened when a peripheral nerve in a monkey's hand was severed. The corresponding sensory map in the brain didn't simply shut down, it aggressively reorganized itself. This rewiring happens through structural plasticity, the actual physical change in gray and white matter proportions, and functional plasticity, where the brain shifts specific cognitive tasks from a damaged area to a healthy region. The brain functions as a relentlessly optimizing ecosystem. However, this ability to adapt holds a terrifying hidden consequence. When the brain loses a primary sensory input, such as vision, it does not leave the associated neural real estate idle. It initiates a process called cross-modal reassignment. As we see in this brain schematic, the visual cortex at the rear of the brain is actively repurposed to process incoming audio and tactile data streams. This reallocation of resources allows some blind individuals to navigate their physical environment using human echolocation. The brain also physically expands the cortical real estate for regions used in complex, repetitive tasks. This map expansion is evident in London taxi drivers, who develop a significantly larger hippocampus, the brain's spatial memory center, by acquiring the knowledge of the city's labyrinthine streets. Similarly, learning multiple languages increases the density of white matter. These myelinated axons handle communication between different brain regions, and the demand of juggling languages forces the brain to build more efficient connectivity tracks. The brain ruthlessly optimizes for the inputs it receives most frequently. It physically expands and strengthens the exact networks required for survival and skill. But the same process can go wrong when the optimization mechanism is fed distorted inputs, or suddenly loses a critical input completely. Maladaptive plasticity causes the debilitating phenomenon of phantom limb pain in amputees. This somatosensory map shows what happens when an arm is removed. The neural zone receiving sensory input from that limb is starved of data. Adjacent regions quickly colonize this inactive zone. Inputs from the face cross over, and the brain misinterprets them as agonizing pain. This same blind rewiring drives structural addiction. Drugs bypass normal learning channels and hijack the mesolimbic system, specifically the ventral tegmental area and the nucleus accumbens, forcing the brain to physically rewire for compulsivity. Looking closely at the nucleus accumbens here, we see the physical degradation caused by habitual substance abuse. The connections within this reward center actually weaken after chronic use and withdrawal, embedding the addiction into the architecture of the brain. Chronic pain and addiction represent the brain's ability to optimize turned inward, a biological superpower functioning with terrifying efficiency against our own survival. The foundational rule governing all of this is simple. Neurons that fire together, wire together. The brain physically reinforces whatever pattern is most active. We can harness this mechanism to override damage. Through goal-directed physical therapy, stroke patients force their brains to reroute motor functions, bypassing dead tissue and rebuilding movement pathways in healthy areas. Psychiatry is leveraging this as well. This microscopic view shows the impact of psychoplastogens, compounds like ketamine or certain psychedelics. They prompt the brain to rapidly grow new dendritic spines, restoring functional connectivity in networks degraded by severe depression. Because the human brain remains malleable well into old age, the neural architecture you possess right now is not a permanent sentence. Every action and habit physically reshapes the mind, giving us the ability to actively sculpt the hardware we rely on. We must choose our inputs wisely.